Time for VUC. In our 11th year, with us on our journey this year, Simwood.com. Simwood can turn you as a developer into a telco. Greenfield Tech. Go to greenfield.tech and see how they can make your tech dreams both feasible and affordable. Our conference bridge is the best you'll ever find at zipdx.com. VUC.me is hosted on Bluehost. And our worldwide local rate dial-ins are provided by voxphone.com. All right, now, welcome to VUC662 for September 8th, 2017. Wrong glasses, I can't read. We're going to be talking when I'm roaming in just a second. And I was roaming for a month. We'll talk about that. We got some really exciting stuff from Alan Quayle and James Bodie on TAD Summit and TAD Hack. TAD everything, TAD all the things. But first, just a quick reminder, not a reminder, a first announcement that you've got mail, but you've also got vuc.me/astricon. Go there, get 20% off right now. That was a nice thing that the folks at Digium did for us, and they actually did it for you. And I believe Mr. Bodie will be the VUC ambassador at Astricon. And let me just switch my camera over so you can see that I'm actually not a bot, although I feel like one, since I haven't slept in about 6 days. Getting ready for the trip. I just flew over. My arms are killing me. And look, hey, speaking of conferences, Kamagiyo World next May. Be there or be square. Let me turn it over to Alan for his announcement. Alan, this is going to be a short segment, and then we'll get into it more because James has a message for you. Alan Quayle.
Can't hear you.
No.
I thought it was just me for a second.
No.
Breathtakingly silent.
Uh-oh.
The mouth is going, but no audio is coming out.
Oh, no.
Well, that's what happens when you turn up late and you don't test your microphone beforehand.
We didn't test for Alan. All right, Alan, while you're getting ready, I guess we could talk a little bit about the roaming thing because it's fairly simple and it's a lightweight introduction. But before we do that, I would like to know who else has been to the States. James, you're obvious. Corrado,
No.
Where have you roamed? You had a thing. You go to Italy and you roam on your European carrier.
Yes.
Who is that?
Yes. I roam on the way because for the past 4 years, I've driven down from Scotland down to Italy. So I go through England, I go through France or Germany, Switzerland, sometimes even Austria and so on. And at every border, you get an SMS saying, okay, welcome to here and there, and you get roaming through. And since the inception of Roam Like a Home from the European directive, the European Commission directive, you can use your minutes and roam through, and it's perfectly fine. I've worked and spoken with people, made calls, received calls, all into my package minutes and texts and data. So, is
there a handoff? Have you ever been speaking when the SMS came in saying you just changed reach? And that can't happen, can
it? I don't remember, but I don't remember the kids complaining they didn't have coverage because I also had an MiFi device that created in the car a Wi-Fi network for the kids connected to a global European network and didn't have any blackouts or brownouts besides tunnels and everything else, but roamed smoothly throughout. So I would say the experience was positive at all.
And the obvious question is, what happened? How did you roam before that European law? What was that experience?
Still pretty flawless, but expensive. That's all.
Okay, not surprised. Who has roamed in Asia? I think Alan Quayle may have, possibly.
Can you hear me now, Randy?
Yes, that's why.
Oh,
I
there
know.
you go.
Have you roamed in Asia?
Yeah, quite a bit. I just, as I mentioned to you earlier, Randy, I just have the T-Mo US plan, which is, unlimited, 2.5G roaming. And it's good enough. It's not ideal, but I'm not streaming video. I just, need to sort of check on websites, use Google Maps and stuff like that. So I can't grumble for the one price I pay. Most of Asia, I think there are a few countries that aren't included, but you know, like in Japan, Singapore, and the rest, it just works everywhere.
Yeah, and I'm guessing, Alan, you've also probably got the Wi-Fi calling on your phone as well.
Correct. Yes.
And so when you're in Wi-Fi, you just make and receive calls over the Wi-Fi.
Exactly, and that, to be honest with you, is most of the time when I'm making calls. Because I want to be sat down somewhere, and most of the places have Wi-Fi available. So the times that I'm out and about and truly need mobile calling are to the point whereby it's so small that I just cancel those calls. I just ignore those calls. So I only take it when I'm in somewhere that's convenient.
That was the problem that I had. We'll get into that later, maybe. But the problem I have is we have excellent roaming from where we are when we go to the United States. And I just came back from there. Was there for 4 weeks, but nobody can call you back from the States. So, well, there's a long story on how you can make that work. And I tried hard for 4 weeks, did not get a satisfactory solution. We'll continue this.
Well,
I've
got a whole string of different solutions.
I know you do.
But we'll come back to that.
Yeah, let's come back to that. This is a sandwich. First, there's the bread, then there's the mayonnaise, and then there's the meat with Alan, and you will give him your news, James, and then we'll go back to the other slice of bread for the roaming in the USA and my travails, which, believe me, cost a lot of money for nothing.
Yep. Yeah, that's not
90. Let's see, 45 plus 45 plus 45. That's 90 plus 45, which is 135. I would have been better off just using our roaming with HSPA plus, whatever that means. I know what it means, but I mean, I don't know I can tell you the speeds and all that, but it's hard to apply it practically. Not great for phone calls over the 3G plus network. Anyway. Alan, let's talk a little about the TAD events that are coming up, and then James will join you with his news.
Excellent. Yeah, I apologize, James, that I've been hassling you daily, but you did promise.
I did, anyway. and you're not the only person who's been hassling me. There's a long queue of people all hassling me at the moment.
You're such a popular chap, what can I say? Well, let me just quickly give you a summary of what we got coming up at the end of the month. That is TAD Hack Global. So this is the world's largest hackathon over this year it's 2 weekends. So the first weekend will be it's mainly the 23rd and 24th of September. And then the second weekend is the following weekend on the 30th and the 1st of October. So we have about 23 locations. We're at 2,200 registrations. Many of the locations have over 100 registrations already. Some of the locations include, we have Athens, The Hague, Kiev, Lagos, London, Lusaka, Madrid, Paris, St. Petersburg, Auckland, Brisbane, Sri Lanka, Islamabad, Karachi. Karachi is a satellite of Islamabad. KL is massive. We're getting up to about 250 registrations for Kuala Lumpur, Melbourne, Pune, Singapore, Sydney, Buenos Aires, Chicago, Miami, Papillon, which is in Colombia. We do some really cool locations. And then, of course, remote. So from the comfort of your own home, you could be hacking on, and the technologies that you hack on are video, Apiphonica, Temesis, Matrix, and of course, Telestacks, which is one of our founding sponsors. We've got tons of other stuff. We have local sponsors. So Faxio, yay, Fax APIs. They're a local sponsor in Chicago. So they'll be, hopefully we'll see some cool hacks there. We also have this year something slightly different. We have some challenges and ideas. And the Arcfire team, which have the Arena network, have set up a challenge, 1K prize associated on getting any hack you build on the global sponsors working on the Arena network. So it's a great way, if you get your hack finished early, to do a little bit extra and have even more chance to win some prize money. So that's TAD Hack Global. We're in those final stretches of just getting everything organized. One of the things we're doing this year to improve support for the hacks is making sure that at each of the locations, we've got local geeks. that have been trained up in all the sponsors' technologies. So that will hopefully help smooth the way, and also setting up, you know how it is, the relationships between the evangelists for the sponsors and the local geeks at each of the locations. So there's that personal human connection. So we have the back channels. So that is TAD Hack. Then quickly, TAD Summit follows a couple of months later. We have a packed agenda. So there, you can go to the TAD Summit site. So that is tadsummit.com. And again, an interesting selection of sponsors this year. You might have noticed one of the sponsors, VoIP Innovations, just announced that they have acquired some very good friends of TAD Hack and TAD Summit, Appidays. So very interesting to see the consolidation taking place there. Other sponsors for TAD Summit include Apiphonica, Telestax, Tintec, who've been doing some really cool stuff in the US ATP SMS ecosystem. Temesis, of course, they're sponsoring all our events this year. Matrix and DataArt. We've got some more, hopefully, sponsors coming on board. If you go to the TAD Summit site, tadsummit.com, and then click on Agenda, you will see a whole range of very interesting people coming together to talk around programmable telecoms. But you will, as you scroll through that long list of excellent world-class speakers, notice there is a gap. And that gap, Mr. Bodie, over to you.
Yes, I apologize profusely yet again. The reason there's a gap is that I still haven't managed to get my copy into Alan for what he classes the dangerous demo. Now, we're trying to get rid of the dangerous part of this, because actually what we're trying to show this time is not dangerous at all. So we're going to be demonstrating a live overlay, part of our multi-operator neutral host front-ended mobile network. In previous TAD Summits, we've built a cloud-based mobile network operator and proved it in various different ways, partnering with other people in the TAD community to put applications upon our mobile network. This year, we're going to do properly what we tried to do last year, but we were just a little bit too, well, it was dangerous last year, in fact. We put some radio access network on the end of our mobile network last year, based upon some technology that wasn't quite ready. I won't name where it came from, but it wasn't quite there. And so we had cells in cardboard boxes with holes pushed through with pens and things like that, and it just wasn't a comfortable experience. So this year we're going to do it properly. We're going to put together in the underground ballroom in the hotel, in the venue, Doubletree Hilton in Lisbon, we're going to be running a multi-operator neutral host network. And the great thing about doing it underground is that there's not a lot of mobile coverage there. So all the people who actually come in to watch the presentation will inadvertently, if they leave their phone on, will end up participating in the demonstration, which is what it's all about, really. What that will mean is people will be able to make and receive calls on their native service, with their native SIM. We'll be running the interconnection and the authentication seamlessly in the back end.
Exactly.
And that is pretty exciting, I think, isn't it, Alan?
Absolutely, because it's live demonstrations of what is possible. Now, the bulk of telecom networks are all software-based. It's all programmable. So it's not just the APIs and the services, it's the core of the network themselves. So this, I think, is going to be an excellent demo. And that's what we're all about, is not just putting up slideware and talking about how amazing everything is putting the money where the mouth is and actually showing the damn thing working for real.
Absolutely.
So that's great.
Yeah, anybody can put up a PowerPoint presentation, but only a subset of people can do a live demo and get away with it.
That's it. Would be crazy enough too. ...
Yeah, and Alan, I can't thank you enough, because if it wasn't for you challenging us to do things, crazy things like, oh, can you build a mobile network in the cloud? If you hadn't have issued that challenge, we wouldn't have, Andy and I would not have done all the things that we've done, and we wouldn't be where we are today. So thank you for that.
Well, no, you're now running your own company, Telit Research, broken free from TruePhone. So it's really exciting to see this development of your money platform and seeing it now really coming to life. So this is, as I said, exciting. It's real, it's live, and there's very few places, events that you can go to around the world where you'll get this type of world first, but also have the people that understand what it means and can very frankly and concisely explain how it's going to impact the whole of the telecom ecosystem.
Yeah.
So again, thanks so much, James.
Yeah, and just amplifying that, the value of an event like TAD Summit to people like Andy and I is absolutely enormous, because you get in there and mix with the kind of the royalty of telecoms technorati, and quite often there are ideas, often crazy ideas, hatched up at TAD Summit, which then people go away and beaver away, and out of those fragile little ideas that are hatched at TAD Summit comes some really serious business propositions.
Exactly.
And TAD Hack as well.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the two go hand in hand. The hackathon is all about technology, developers, creativity, without any marketing people there at all. And then with TAD Summit, it's very much focused on just bringing together the business and the tech folks to take the input from TAD Hack, because quite often we have amazing hacks created that are going to be on the path to commercialization. In fact, what we've got this year for our keynotes for TAD Hack, we have Craig Walker will be giving one of the keynotes.
Oh, my old friend Craig, what a star.
Yes. Oh, yeah. It's already up on the TAD Hack YouTube channel. He did a great piece. So he'll be doing with the welcome at all the TAD Hack locations that we run. But we also have Ruan from Extragene, and also, who we know well, Karel from VUC662, who again, both created hacks at TAD Hack and have built companies from those hacks. So as that path to commercialization is great and exemplified by those two guys who will be giving keynotes before the whole of the event starts.
Okay. And all of the content is going to be, streamed or made available?
Live streamed, recorded. AT&T will be beavering away over 2 weekends. Yeah. So we will have all the content available at both TAD Hack and TAD Summit, because even if you can't make it, you can still see, learn, and understand what was created at both events.
Yeah, AT&T is a complete and total video star. In fact, one thing I'd love to do is to get Michael Graves and AT&T together, just so they interface and talk video. That would be absolutely brilliant.
That would be a real geek fest.
And there are still places available. I mean, what are the numbers looking like for TAD Summit at the moment?
TAD Summit, I mean, it's early days. So, we're at about, I can't remember now, 100 and something. We've got space for about 220 at a push. So, again, we should fill out the venue as always.
Okay, so from my perspective, just looking at the presentations is great, but to get full value from it, you've actually got to go there and just talk to people. It's all about people at the end of the day.
Exactly.
And the great thing about TAD Summit are the people. It's a shame we ought to get Randy there. Shall I kidnap him and drag him across?
Exactly. That's it. I agree.
Across to where? What are we talking about? What city? I didn't understand.
It's Lisbon. You've been to Lisbon before. Lisbon's
Lisbon's was one of my favorite cities and one of my favorite people. Incredible. Yeah.
Yeah, incredibly cost effective too. You can get flights and accommodation in Lisbon for prices that you would not believe.
We could certainly talk about it. Why not?
And it's a good place to roam to, Randy.
Don't get me started on the 60 euro bill that I had roaming, trying to call that bloody national airline when they sent, well, we'll get into that. And when we're talking about roaming, I guess. Or are we now?
I think we were transitioning over. So again, thanks so much, Randy, for giving me a chance just to plug TAD Hack, TAD Summit.
And I will provide you with that copy that you want, with a list of all the partners that are.
But when? When?
Soon.
No, give me a date. Give me a date so I can make you feel really guilty.
How about
Today.
tonight, after I finished here.
Okay, cool. Thank you so much.
I
And
love
on
you
Saturday,
too.
I will make you feel guilty.
Yeah, you will. You will.
Okay, Alan, we'll be back. Your events are starting this month for TAD Hack, but we'll be back for TAD Summit. We'll get you back before then too, and we'll get an update. Okay.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Randy.
All righty, and you're welcome to stay. Whatever you have to do.
Yeah, I've got unfortunately TAD Hack stuff, unfortunately. But take care, guys. See you soon.
Okay, thanks, Alan.
Bye, Alan.
So let me see if I can tell this story quickly because it's boring, except that we lost a lot of money on it. So my idea was, well, first of all, T-Mobile. So T-Mobile used to allow you to have an account with a balance and there would be no monthly, you could turn it off and it would just sit there and you'd have your number. So my wife and I kept our phone numbers for years and it was wonderful. And then we paid what was then, I think, $35 a month or something for data and voice. Well, that was when there was only 3G. I can never remember what 2.5G is. What is 2.5G, James? What does that mean? What do you mean by that?
It's Edge. So it's
Edge sucks.
Yeah, it's multi-time slot GPRS. So this goes a little bit faster than GPRS.
Okay, so GPRS was 2G. And Edge was 2.5G, HSPA 3G, HSPA plus 3G plus or
3.5G,
and LTE 4G, and LTE A, or is there a LTE plus or something?
No, that's LTE is kind of almost 4.5G.
And just to clarify to people who have never thought about this, I was sitting in a doctor's office today, and since I had nothing to do in the waiting room, I did a test of the speed, and they're quite near the tower, not too near to be in the donut toroid of not getting anything, but just a nice spot. We were getting about 70 down, about what I get on DSL, 70 down, probably 10 or 20 up.
On which network was this?
On Free Mobile.
So Free, that'll be Orange then, roaming.
It may have been, I don't even know. You know, Free has a lot of towers now, so it's hard to say. Anyway, point is, this is probably equal or better than our VDSL 2 link here. But the point is, I also have my Nexus 5 on a special SIM that I use just if DSL goes off here. So we go to the United States. I'm thinking, all right, I'm going to be able to concoct some kind of thing with Google Voice because I've got my SIM. So at some point, T-Mobile, the uncarrier, T-Mobile, they are the uncarrier, and here's why. Because we were there for 2 days, then they turned off 3G, and we were on Edge. And I paid $45 on 2 phones for Edge. So thank you, T-Mobile. That sucked. So then I said, well, in the interest of...
just to make things clear here, they probably didn't turn it off totally. It's just that they turned off the bands that your phone was capable of receiving.
You're right. Unfair.
Because you've got a European phone,
right.
Which is not capable of receiving the US specific bands. You were in the doo-doos.
You're right. But let me
the Nexus 5 and in the US and in Europe came with different radios in them.
Yeah, okay, that's all true, and that's fine. However, the expectation was there because for years, gosh, since 3-4 years ago at Astracon, when they first turned on 3G, HSPA plus in Atlanta, where we were looking for the towers and stuff. So because that's what we do, right? Over at Astracon. So anyway, they had started. So these are these frequencies. Yes, there's a difference, but the point is, for a couple of years, we have had HSPA plus. And by the way, that's almost as good as LTE in that LTE frequently doesn't hit anywhere near its potential in every country, everywhere, because you got to be just in a certain area of the tower coverage to get that. And I was there this morning. That's why I mentioned we had very high.
Yeah, you've
Go
got
ahead.
to bear in mind that LTE quite often is very heavily contended because lots of devices try and hop on there because it's deemed to be better. And so you end up with incredibly loaded LTE cells.
That's 100%. Yeah, 100% true, Jay.
LTA cell sites tend to be less densely arrayed, so you get more connections per site anyway because the range is longer. But I mean, my experience with T-Mobile's HSPA Plus and the Nexus 5 before, which is what I carried before the Pixel, was 42 megabits was the best they could do. But they did it well until such time as they started refarming their spectrum to roll out more LTE, right? And at that point, their HSPA capability began to taper geographically because they were trying to do more LTE. So that's an iPhone.
Yeah.
It's not an iPhone, it's a new phone.
The point to note here is that one of the problems that Randy had is that he ended up with a European spec phone in North America, and you've got to be aware of this when you go and plan ahead and just check to make sure what the capabilities of your handset are. I carry
in the area you're going to, though, James, because they only turned off the whatever you want to call it, the tower, I guess. They only discontinued the tower in the one city we spent weeks in. The rest, everything else, Los Angeles was on HSP.
Are there any truly universal phones? Or, I mean, we used to talk about quad band, tri-band, quad band,
That's exactly what I was going to tell you about. So I carry an iPhone 7 Plus, which is capable of operating on not 4 bands, but 40 bands, 40. In fact, any of the modern high-end phones, like the Samsung Galaxy S8, for example, will do the same thing. So they have system on chip RF what's the word transceivers in there that will do all 40 bands. And in fact, all the Qualcomm powered handsets, they also put in a thing called, what's it called now? But it's got an RF amplifier with an antenna tuner. So one of the big problems for quad band phones was that you had to tune you had to have a resonant antenna in the phone. Well, with the advent of solid state antenna tuners, you don't even need to have a resonant antenna, because you can have an antenna tuner which is about 1.5 millimeters thick, which actually tunes your antenna to resonance to make it efficient. Which
when you say tuna,
tunes it.
When you say tuna, I'm thinking of a tuna salad sandwich or a delicious.
This is tuna as opposed to tuna, and so basically it's matching the complex impedance of the antenna with the RF output stages to maintain that it operates efficiently.
God, James, let's not get too ham radio on this. You know, I remember all
it's not
those
ham
things.
radio. It's just electronic engineering, isn't it?
It's basic electronics for
I always thought that in England you pronounce it impedance, but anyway, let's go through.
Powered like this. The Pixel's got a Qualcomm. What is it? An 821 in it.
821. That's almost state of the art. The state of the art processor now is the Qualcomm Snapdragon 835.
But you guys are talking about stuff that's priced at you have to sell your firstborn's blood to get it. It's like $1,000 worth, right?
Well, yeah, but if you're going to go to the States, you might as well go into Walmart. And these days, you can go into Walmart and for $30 you can buy an LTE disposable phone.
And that is exactly probably the best way to do it. That was my conclusion. Wanted to mention Google Voice a little bit about this, but so my tactic, the anecdote is that when we went to see the eclipse, yes, I did see the eclipse. When we went to see the eclipse, at one point and one point only in over 4 weeks in the United States, my phone lit up with LTE. But of course, at that point, everybody was on LTE probably. I didn't do any tests or anything, but it did say LTE on the status bar. The point is that the expectation of having T-Mobile all these years do HSPA Plus and then suddenly seeing an E up there was pretty nauseating. And of course, I wouldn't have invested. So I called them, and I didn't want to go through 20 minutes each time, which you do when you call these things, minimum. They refunded me in the sense that I could then go to a prepaid plan. In other words, went to no data, pay as you go. Prepaid is different. Prepaid was $45 each, so we went to Edge. So I then bought an AT&T SIM, which gave me H plus everywhere. So that's fine, and that's all well and good. You need that actually. If you were just doing email or non-live things, you don't really need anything but Edge, actually. So Edge is fine. But when you want to use maps, you really probably want to have at least 3G or H or H plus. 3G is H, I think, right?
Absolutely. Well, let me tell you about.
Or is there a difference between Edge and H? Is there something between?
Yeah. Yes.
No, I mean, I didn't mean. I mean, there is a difference.
The modulation scheme is totally.
No. Is there something between them in speeds? No. Right?
Well.
Yeah.
It's UMTS. It's
my
Edge.
experience is yes.
Yeah.
Edge is slower. HSPA will do as much as 21 megabits down,
which is great.
HSPA Plus is channel bonded and will do up to 72 or something like that. But T-Mobile only ever deployed it, as far as I know, to 42 megabits.
Which is correct. Which is viable. 40 megs is viable if you're getting it.
And then below that, you've got your standard cooking grade 3G, which is also known as UMTS.
Yes.
But there's not a lot of that left around the place because most of it has been upgraded because it's pretty limited.
And I never saw 3G on the phone. This
happened so much that stuff has been turned off so much.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I think the 2G network is still being kept, though. Is that for emergency purposes?
No, it's for licensing purposes. What this is in the US, in the UK, 2G is going to go away.
Okay.
And the main reason for that is that a lot of the 2G spectrum is going to be refarmed for IoT.
Good.
We really don't want to get into that again.
Okay, so let's talk about
Tim.
Another area in which you got stuck on your trip, Randy, and that's the fact that you only had a T-Mobile SIM, which means that you could only operate on the T-Mobile network, and until you went and swapped it for an AT&T SIM.
But I do have a dual SIM phone, and I did at one point have the two in.
Now, my point I'm trying to get to is that there are solutions like the one from Andy and my previous employer, TruePhone.
Yeah.
Who it's an offering that's aimed at people who do quite a lot of international traveling. So you have multiple international numbers in multiple countries and an international roaming profile, which allows you to hop on to multiple different networks. So in your case, Randy, you wouldn't have been able to use T-Mobile. So the TruePhone SIM would have used AT&T.
And AT&T was superior, but let me say something else. And this is all I have to say, really. This is the end, so you can thank me later, cutting it short. But what's important is that our Free Mobile, our carrier here in France, gives us unlimited voice and text to France and in the country you're in. Let's see if we can see what that is that Corrado's holding up.
Yep, that's the 4G in this area.
Yeah, but it's for the moment. Oh, almost. Go back a little. Go back. Keep going back. Keep going back. It's 2873 and 1072. Is that right?
Yeah. I mean, in town center with all the traffic that is going on right now,
decent,
and a lot of people on it.
That's your LTE.
That's on.
That's LTE. 4G.
Which network?
Yeah.
That's EE.
EE.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Virgin, it's not easy, is an MVNO on EE.
Okay. Anyway, my final point was that so we have unlimited voice and text, which is very handy, and for which I would not have needed anything else. But what happens is no one can answer you from the United States because you're on your French number. Okay. And I assume it's the same for the UK. If you have your roaming on EE.
No, that is a very, very good point, because if you try and call anyone in the States with something that's not a US number, they will never, ever call you back, will they?
Well, I mean, even your friends, you don't want to impose that on them. So the point is that the other plan was to use Google Voice. And I can tell you that Google Voice, as far as texting goes, you're better off to just give them your Google Voice number and use it. You use it on Wi-Fi, you use it on your roaming network, and you're good. There's absolutely no problem. But for voice, the only solution I've figured out that's really cost effective is to go over there and use the roaming that I've got that works perfectly well, has HSPA plus for the most part in the areas I've been in anyway. And then you have to kind of do the tin can thing where you tell people to text you to call them, and then you can call them. I mean, I'm talking about your friends, not business contacts. There's no good solution for that other than yours, James. Go ahead.
Yeah. What is the problem with using Google Voice for voice?
Well, it's not always good, except in Wi-Fi, as Alan also said, because you're on HSPA, which you may or may not be good if you're moving.
So putting that in a different way, Google Voice operates as an over-the-top VoIP service.
Yeah.
And because it's running over the top, it doesn't have the benefit of all the quality of service stuff that the voice service on these things has.
Yeah.
And so if you've got a slightly ropey data channel, then it'll break up long before a voice channel will on a native voice channel on these things will.
And that's why we paid for T-Mobile and for yada yada, because like the other problem is how many numbers can you give people, right? You want to give them one number. So my idea was give them the Google Voice number. And by the way, we shouldn't get into this too much, but Google Voice is changing for the worst. So there's a lot of features that they're leaving off. And as Michael says, since it's free, what are you going to do? You've got other choices like call-centric or on-SIP or a lot of other things that you can do that are not free.
I've got about half a dozen different ones on here, and they all give you a free US number.
Well, okay, call center.
But
it's always is going to get back to the problem that you still need. Anyway, there just doesn't seem to be any way to do this completely well without a local SIM or a TruePhone SIM, I assume.
TruePhone SIM is.
I mean, that's not free either. So
no, you have to pay for it. But what you get with a TruePhone SIM is a pretty top-notch, effortless, trouble-free. You don't even have to worry about it. It just works.
Right.
And that will give you full LTE roaming, so super fast data.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
LTE roaming.
Yeah.
But that's metered, right? That would be metered data.
Well, yeah, you pay for it, but
no, but I mean metered. Yeah, I want to pay for it, but I don't want to be metered. I'd like to have a big chunk.
Okay. Well, the way TruePhone do it normally is you buy, as a company, you buy a big lump of minutes and big lump of data, and you share that out across everybody in the company.
Okay.
And then it's then in bundle whatever country you go into. So you see, it means you don't worry about it. Somebody else's problem.
Well, at any rate, I just wanted to tell people that basically, if you've got good roaming where you're coming from, you're probably better off to keep that and then figure out a way to signal people, tell them to text you, to call them back or something like that. We're going to get into something else, but before we do, if anybody else has any of these roaming stories, Andy, Corrado, Michael, or James.
Well, I had a few problems with roaming when you hop on a plane and then land in another country. It took about a half a day for my phone and the network to realize I was in another country and get everything synced. Whereas instead, driving is completely flawless.
That's funny because I did not have that experience. As soon as we land, when they say you can now turn off airplane mode or whatever it's called, within seconds, the thing will come up with a signal, and then as soon as you get the signal, you'll get the SMS, welcome to Amsterdam, blah, blah, blah. So I think that's improved, Corrado.
Hopefully, yes. Yeah, the last time I flew over was about 4 years ago. So
no, it's for me. James, have you had that experience when you get off a plane?
Yes, I have. In the early days of TruePhone, when let me explain something else. So most SIM cards have a single IMSI. It's a single IMSI solution. So you use the same identity to authenticate globally. But there are another class of SIM cards which have multiple identities or multiple IMSIs. That's an O2 SIM. Corrado's holding up now. And one of the problems with the early multi-IMSI SIMs, well, R1s, was that when you landed and turned the thing on, it had to work out where it was and then work out which IMSI to select in order to then connect you to the local network in the most efficient manner. And the way that the TruePhone ones work is that you select the most efficient IMSI to connect to the network, but then once you're connected, all of your numbers, all of your user profiles are then mapped onto the currently active IMSI. So the end result is that you get all of your traffic on all of your numbers, and you can have multiple numbers wherever you are, and the thing just works seamlessly and in a very cost-effective mode. It's like being local. But that's the whole point of TruePhone. That's why if you're a heavy-duty traveler, so for example, if you work in the Formula One industry and you go around the world, racing all around the world, the one SIM that you want to be carrying is a TruePhone SIM. Or if you're a pop star or an international banker. But if you're Randy, you probably...
if you're Randy, thank you for that.
If you're Randy and you go to the
British
States,
friends, my British girlfriends,
once a year, then it's probably
Randy
more cost effective to have a single country solution.
James, I'm Randy all the time.
Yeah.
That's what I tell them anyway. All right, James, you were going to tell us. So that's enough on the roaming. I just wanted to tell people that, give them my experience. It's kind of a fun thing if you're a geek, but for example, my wife wasn't really thrilled with the fact that suddenly she saw an E and couldn't navigate with maps when she was in town. So it's something you need to look into.
It's amazing how spouses get really upset about this. I've had my wife try and throw the phone out of the window. In fact, I've had Andy try and throw the phone out of the window.
And he knows better.
That was true. That was in Orlando.
Yeah, but that was after going through the same junction for the 5th time.
It's just
this thing's no good. It's not fast enough. This effing thing is. I've got to throw it out the window. I said, no, Andy, don't throw it out of the window. You will regret it.
No, you really want to smash it with a hammer sometimes when it doesn't. Plus, these phones take longer to reboot than a Polycom phone, and that's saying something.
Is that possible? Longer
Hardly
than the Polycom phone. That's probably about 3 years, isn't it?
It's a long time. But anyway, so James, we're going to dissolve into your other topic, which has to do with extremely futuristic things. So let's talk about that a little bit.
Okay, so we had a bit of a text discussion this morning, talking about things that we were going to talk about on the show. And one of the things we touched on was multi-operator neutral host, which you heard we touched on with Alan. So this is this concept of setting up a mobile network that will accept a registration from any roaming handset. And this is reasonably rare because mobile network operators just don't work that way. But it's something that we have built, and we're just hawking it around the bazaars at the moment. We're going to give a live demo of multi-operator neutral host in Lisbon. Then we're going to take it off to the States the week following. And one of the teams that want to have a look at it is a team that are doing high altitude pseudo satellites. So we're talking here about solar powered drones. So very lightweight aircraft with big wings that are covered with solar cells. And these things currently fly at, well, considerable altitude, around 55 to 60,000 feet. So that's above the air traffic and above the weather, above the hurricane. There's topical. And then it just go round and round in circles, about, I don't know, 18 kilometers up, providing a signal down to the ground. The great thing about 18 kilometers is that it's a darn sight closer than 186,000 kilometers, which is a geostationary satellite, or even a fast-moving low Earth orbit satellite, which is probably somewhere around 400 kilometers. And because it's not fast-moving, you don't have to worry about dealing with the horrible Doppler that you get on Doppler shift that you get on low Earth orbit satellites. What that means is that you can have a conventional handset, LTE handset, on the ground and offer it a service from this cell flying around at 18 kilometers up. How cool is that?
One question, James. Where does the drone flying over takes the feed to feed the handsets down?
The backhaul is, well, there are a number of different ways of doing it, but the favored method at the moment is non-optical laser with very, very fine tracking control.
Isn't that called Razor? And I'm not kidding. Radio instead of light.
Could be. I don't know. I haven't heard that term before. But anyway, that's the favorite. And one of these groups, actually, there are a number of different consortia doing this. But the one that we're looking at flies not one platform, but a number of them, say 10 or 12, in a constellation. And the great thing about that is that because they're spread out a little bit, you can actually use the spacing of the platform as part of an active beamforming antenna configuration. So because you're spread out, you've got a larger antenna aperture. So you can then do active beamforming to beam up on individual handsets on the ground. And you can also use it to null out noise interference. So the end result is you get much better signal to noise performance on your ground to air links. And you can operate a really quite high quality LTE advanced waveform to a conventional handset from this thing flying around. Now, the way it'll work is normally you would be on your terrestrial network, AT&T or T-Mobile, right up until the time when you drive off the end of the network. Now, normally you go into, oh, I can't receive anything mode. But in this case, the handset would then see the airborne relay and would attach to that. But the problem with that is if you really need something like multi-operator neutral host to be able to accept anything that wants to accept to anything that wants to attach to it. So that's one of our little distractions. That's one of the things we're looking to be doing in the future. Is that interesting?
Yes.
It is.
Yeah.
I was trying to find non-optical lasers. I accidentally clicked on shopping, but I was looking at images, but I was trying to find scholarly articles. Quantum cascade laser.
And so there are.
Oh, here we go. Laser.
Interesting enough, there are three concerns that are leading the way. There's one.
Oh, interesting.
The leading one is UK based, based in Farnborough. And they're principally focused on military aircraft. Then there's another UK-based one, which was bought about 1.5 years ago by Facebook. And they build a really big aircraft with a wingspan about 1.5 times the size of a Boeing 737. Really big. But because it's big, it can stay up for a long time. It can carry quite a lot of weight. So we're talking about lots of lithium sulfur batteries. And this lithium sulfur is the latest technology. It's about half the weight, twice the power of a lithium polymer battery. So lighter, can hold more energy. Therefore, all of a sudden, things like battery-powered aircraft are feasible, because before you couldn't do it because the batteries were too heavy and didn't have enough capacity. But now with lithium sulfur, all of a sudden, you can. And anyway, then the third grouping is a US-based consortium flying much smaller aircraft, but in groups, so they go around in gangs. At the moment, the sort of state of the art is that you can put these things up for, what, 3 or 4 months at a time without coming down. But the target is to extend that duration out to something like 4 years. So you put these aircraft up and they'll just go round and round and round and round for 4 years without coming down. And the key to success there is being able to store enough energy during the sunlight hours to keep the thing going during the nighttime. And the issue with lithium sulfur batteries at this moment in time is the deterioration with multiple charge cycles, because at the moment they haven't got them lasting as long as they would want to. Their performance deteriorates with time. But it's only a matter of time, if you pardon the pun, before they sort that out. So give it a year, 2 years, we'll have these things up there for 4 years at a time.
What is the hardware that does the transmit and receive, though? That seems incredible that it's so low power to me.
So high performance software defined radios. So the great thing about that is that you can change the waveform at the drop of a hat and the operating frequency. We're talking about reasonably low power RF from these things, but with modern waveforms, you gain so much in the modulation scheme, you don't have to run high power. To give you an example of that, just moving from 3G HSDPA to an LTE waveform, you're gaining about, what, 20 to 22 dB in processing gain just from the modulation scheme alone. So what that means is that you can drop the power level correspondingly and still have quite a viable circuit there, but operating at much lower power levels, which is great for everybody, really. Less interference, less power consumption. That means that you don't fry your brain with your handset either. So it's funny, we had Tim Panton on the other day going, oh, why are they turning 2G off? There's nothing wrong with 2G, apart from the fact it's crap compared with LTE. Look at the radio performance, Tim, and the power consumption.
Well, he's not
and the throughput.
He's not here to take the other side, so we can't.
Yeah, well, we just need to kill off 2G. 2G is just rubbish compared with 4G waveforms. And then, if you want to do low power data, slow data, or that sort of thing, then use a modern IoT waveform. And that is why Corrado, that's why the 2G networks in UK are going to be turned off, because IoT narrowband waveform is designed specifically to drop directly into a 200 kilohertz GSM channel. So you take out a 2G transmitter and you put in an IoT narrowband transmitter, exactly the same spectrum, 900 megahertz or whatever, or 1800 in UK, 200 kilohertz wide. But what you get is this massive, we're talking about 40 dB modulation gain on it, which means that you can end up with an extremely low power IoT device in the cupboard underneath the stairs and the electricity meter. Because
around.
and because it's running such low powers, the battery in these IoT devices, you can end up with a device with a battery life of 10 years. A primary battery you don't have to replace.
We need that network to be IPv6.
Yeah.
Of course.
Of course.
Yeah.
And of course it is, because it's modern.
Yeah.
But that goes without saying.
Yep.
So the future's bright. The future for low-speed data is IoT. And when we say low speed, it's not actually, doesn't have to be particularly that slow. Andy, help me here. Remind me what the maximum bit rate on IoT narrowband is.
IoT narrowband is 100 kilobits.
I think it's a bit more than that. I think it's 200 a bit.
It may be 200 at peak, but you design it looking at 100 kilobits.
Indeed. So and that compared with GSM data, that's not slow, is it?
It's extremely good. And the other thing that you have to remember here, you're advocating the blank or complete removal of 2G in the UK, and I don't think that's likely to happen. I think you might end up with mixed half band implementations.
I think that 2G is going to disappear very rapidly. It's not that we need cheap and cheerful 2G handsets anymore, because there are lots of cheap and cheerful 3G and 4G handsets available now. So if need be, the operators, all they have to do is do an exchange scheme where people come and hand in their 2G handsets and get given a 3G handset, as they did with TVs when they turned the analog TV signal off. And people said, oh, people will kick the arse out of it and have lots of people rushing in with these old TVs, but it didn't happen. And I guess the same would be with handing in 2G phones. Yeah, as long as you're not giving out anything that's too sexy as a replacement, I think the take-up would be very, very small.
Speaking of sexy, we are using the new YouTube low latency mode. So I put Michael's clock on so he can make some measurements or take a look at that. But apparently,
it's about 2 seconds and change.
That's amazing. But I mean, it's amazing if the quality's there. Of course, the quality of looking at 4 or 5 guys talking is not all that important.
AVC1, and the thing about AVC1 that's interesting, I was doing a little reading about this because there's a streaming media event running in concert with IBC this week. The thing about AVC is AVC1 is supposed to be a new video codec that's being developed by an independent group, but it's backed by YouTube and Netflix. And the thing about that is they basically have said that they're not going to accept it. They're basically going to keep cranking on it until they've achieved what they think of as about a 20% improvement over VP9.
And VP9 is not bad in itself, is it?
What are we looking at, Randy? It's all fuzzy.
Yeah. No, I just threw it up there as a joke.
Just annoy people.
It's my AT&T $45 experiment.
Yeah. Well, your camera failed to focus on it.
I wish, it focused on that much. But
well, you can read AT&T.
I wish I could I think it's still active until September 19th. So I wish I could send it to somebody.
I'm quite impressed that you can receive any radio signals at all, that piece of paper.
It's very, very good, but it's disposable and recyclable. Anyway, there was something else I wanted to talk about quickly, briefly.
New iPhone. The big question: will the new iPhone have an Apple soft SIM in or not?
That is a good question.
Because of course, if you have an Apple soft SIM in there, and you hit the Randy, oops, I've got no coverage problem, then you can always engage an Apple soft SIM and away you go.
Well, wait a minute now. That's worth talking about how that works. They've existed since the iPad had them, right? At some point.
Yeah, but you've probably noticed that they're in the iPad, but not in the iPhone. Why is that? Well, the answer is because the iPads have just got a data profile,
right?
And whilst you can set up an international roaming data profile relatively easily, setting up something that can cope with internationally roaming VoLTE, voice over LTE, is a lot more complicated, and there aren't very many operators who have sussed out full international VoLTE. But Andy and I know of one. And and that's that particular supplier, no names, supplies soft SIMs for Apple right now, and there is a fair chance, with a fair wind behind, that we could see at last a soft SIM which supports VoLTE in the iPhone 8.
How so? From a user standpoint of don't want to know, don't care, what is the procedure? You land in country X and you want service, or let's say that you can arrange it on the net or something. How does that work?
Well, this has all changed quite recently. The original Apple SIMs were a bit of a train wreck in that you could only ever have one active profile at a time. So if you're in US and say you had T-Mobile USA profile in your phone and you came to UK and you wanted to then switch to a UK profile to be cost effective, what you had to do is completely destroy your EE profile. And so that was just gone, wasted. You couldn't go back to it.
You mean your T-Mobile profile?
Yeah, T-Mobile profile would be dead. Which is total.
How do you enter the profiles? Is that something that goes over the air from the carrier?
Yeah,
or?
there's an interface on the phone to do it.
By interface, you mean
A web type interface.
On the phone, you type yada yada.
Well, not on the phone. In that case, it was on the iPad. Bearing in mind, the iPhones don't have soft SIMs in them yet.
Okay, but it's on the iPad. But what is it? How is it talking? Is it talking on that very low-level protocol that I forgot the name of? SMS based, or what is it talking on?
You're talking directly to the soft SIM, and then the soft SIM has its own signaling channel. It'll use the SIM signaling channel,
That's fascinating.
which is kind of similar to USSD, but is not USSD because it's
USSD is exactly what I was talking about. I can never remember that acronym, but yeah.
Because it's a signaling channel which is encrypted using the carrier's own crypto. So it's totally, encrypted.
So that's all.
Yeah, and the fun thing is, and you'll like this, Randy, is that if you have control of that signaling channel, you can do all kinds of interesting things like tunneling through. So it brings back happy memories of flying across to the States on, I think it was Virgin, and they had onboard 3G, 2G or 3G. And so I spent about half the flight just playing with the signaling channel. I had a nice long chat with my wife back in UK over the signaling channel and did all kinds of interesting things. But and the reason for that is because the signaling channel is open. It's always open. It's always free because it has to be open because otherwise you can't authenticate. You can't do anything without an open channel for the signaling. So it's a bit like, do you remember when we had ISDN with 2B plus D? So the D channel was the signaling channel. So the B channel
16 kilobits.
Yeah, that's right. 16 kilobit signaling channel, and then 2B, each B being 64 kilobit.
Yeah.
A whole load of people used to use the D channel, the 16 kilobit channel, to do things like trickling through email and tunneling through, because the signaling channel was always open and it was always free. And so, and if you didn't want to pay for connectivity when you're not actually doing very much, then tunneling through on the D channel was a pretty sneaky sort of idea. So what we're saying is that it's possible to do a similar sort of thing, but just on mobile.
That is quite funny.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're going to terminate here and get on to the mature audiences only. I have something funny to tell you, Michael, if you're still with us, but I can't say it in front of everybody. We want to remind you that the VUC1 is the code, but if you go right to vuc.me/astracon, case insensitive, by the way, you'll fall right into this form that's pre-filled out with the discount. So go ahead and take that chance.
And here's a funny thing. David Duffett actually sent me a slightly different personalized code. Which I thought we were going to use on the VUC, but he sent you one as well. So I've got a dangerous demos one.
Well, that's excellent. So be sure to use that.
But it's right and proper that people who listen to the VUC use the VUC code, because then VUC will get all the creds for that.
Absolutely. And since we get $100 for each person who registers, I wish. Okay.
Yeah, if that was the case, then everybody sign up using the VUC code.
Please do. But sign up nonetheless. It's a fun thing. By the way, we wish Digium luck. They got Irma heading for them. And Fred, also, our love goes out to you and Jenny. And I really hope that nothing happens to you. So that's it for today. Next week is no one knows, but here we go. We're out of here any second.